All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are so excited to be here today. We have it streaming on a couple of different platforms right now. So not all of you will be able to send us questions, but as you're watching this, if there are questions, please feel free to send us emails after the fact. At the end of this, we will definitely have a link to where you can get in contact with us. But the whole point of this is to answer your questions. So if this springs you to ask more, we're excited to be here and to help. So as a getting started, wanted to introduce Scott Fisher as a valuable member of the Largo Group team who comes from a great operational background. And the goal of this is that hopefully we can put together both the accounting side and the operating side to find 5% in your bottom line.
Awesome. Very excited to be on here with you today, Ann, and go through the 5%.
All right, let's go. So the big thing today that we're going to do is really walk through some of the things we can start to think about when we're looking at 5%, because I think part of this is some of the mindset behind really looking for improvement that last week doesn't have to equal this week. And as we walk through this, hopefully this will get everyone to realize that some of this could be very little things that we just need to tweak in order to really see a good result. So again, Scott, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. I come from over 30 plus years in the restaurant business. I grew up in a family restaurant, so understand some small operations and then working for corporate restaurants, um, for over almost 20 years and have been able to see a lot of different things when it comes to what our clients are looking for out there when it comes to rising labor costs and rising food costs and all the challenges right now. And we just want to be an asset and to be able to help through these challenging times. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and the numbers I think can work when we dig in a little bit and like you said, put the accounting side of it with the restaurant side of it, and make them all kind of come out at the end with it.
Yes. No, perfect. So, all right, well, let's get started because I think one of the things that we really want to talk about today is, the number one or number two cost in any restaurant operation is obviously your food cost. And part of this is looking at your menu. So, Scott, can you fill us a little in on some of that thought process?
Yeah, definitely. And like and say one of the biggest variables that a restaurant owner or operator can control is going to be their food cost, and that's going to start with menu innovation. Taking control of that cost. Optimizing your profitability. And then figuring out how to start your menu, or maybe if you already have a menu in place, to figure out where you can go with that. And that's where we're going to start today. Is one of the biggest levers you can pull when it's looking for 5% is looking at your food cost.
Perfect. So, all right, so we have a little example to get started on. So, Scott's going to walk us through our example.
Yeah. Yeah. So here we have Largo's new restaurant, our Largo's lemonade, hot dog, and filet mignon bar. So we're going to keep it simple. We're going to go with just a few different items to try to get that point across. And we're making an item. Um, where do we start? How do we know what to price something at? So, we're gonna go with our regular lemonade first, right? We have a nice glass of 16-ounce glass of lemonade. So as you put that on your menu, how do we know what to price it at? So, it's just some basic ideas for the lemonade is let's just assume a lemon's going to cost us 50 cents and we're going to need 10 lemons to, make our gallon of lemonade, and we're going to use 1 cup of sugar. That cup of sugar is going to cost us, let's say 30 cents a cup. So we're just starting with basic math equations to get us a 1 gallon of lemonade. It's going to cost us about $5.60. From there, we're gonna go a 16-ounce portion. So assume now that gallon, we're gonna get 8 portions of lemonade. So per glass, it's gonna cost us 70 cents. And some restaurants are gonna want to throw, the cup in there or the to-go cup, and that's fine. When we're talking about COGS, it doesn't need to be exactly the same, but we want to have an idea of a starting point of what this glass lemonade is going to cost us before we add in labor, before we add in anything else. So we know that glass is going to cost us 70 cents. So for our fun here at Largo's restaurant, we're gonna price it at $4. So at a $4 price point, our cost of goods is gonna be about 17.5%, which again is probably where you want to be when it comes to non-alcoholic beverages and knowing that. And again, so on that cup, our profit's going to be for everyone we sell, our profit's going to be $3.30 on that one glass of lemonade.
Which is awesome. And I think what's interesting here, especially with this analysis, is, a couple of things I run across on the more on the accounting side is when you ask someone, okay, what are your costs of goods? Oh, I run a, 30% cost of goods. I run a 32% cost of goods. But in reality, that's just the average, right? There's definitely things on your menu that have a higher margin and a lower margin. And what's so interesting is last year, every year we go out to the Restaurant Leadership Conference, and last year there was an entire 45-minute segment on adding drinks like this with like the pretty color, and you see the Starbucks with like the strawberries in it, right? The whole idea was this is a really easy way to increase your margin, because for every one of these you sell, you make more percentage wise than a burger or something that's very, meat heavy. And if you think about last year with how crazy food costs were, rather than being frustrated that we're running a 35% average or 36 or whatever it is, there could be some hidden things here that could make a huge difference. Especially then if you do a promotion on this, or, it really, drives your sales or gets people to come in the door. But I think this is a great way to show that you don't have to have 30% across the board.
Yeah, definitely. And as we get into our next item of a bar
Here
drink,
we
right? So
go.
we have a spiked lemonade now. We're gonna spice up a little bit with a spiked lemonade. So again, so just in general thinking, use the ingredients you already have. So if you're a restaurant, you sell lemonade, well, and let's make a nice bar drink, with the lemonade you already have prepped. You already used the labor for that. But again, for this example, we're going to just keep it simple. We're going to say, hey, we have two different spiked lemonades. One we're going to make with a well vodka. For that bottle, we're going to say it's about $10 a bottle. For the top shelf vodka, we're going to say it's about $30 a bottle. And same thing, we're going to just start backwards and figure out how do we get to the end result price we want to be at. So, we can Google all these to figure out how many ounces are in a liter and milliliters. But when you come down to it, the 750 milliliter bottle that most of our, restaurants are using, you're going to get about 17 shots out of that bottle. So for our well vodka, we're gonna say a shot is 59 cents. And for our top shelf vodka, we're gonna say our shot's $1.76. So that becomes our starting point. And then we're just gonna add that to um, our price of the glass of lemonade that we figured out on our last slide, that's 70 cents. So assuming that, hey, for our well vodka, we're going to charge our spiked well vodka, we're going to charge $10. For our top shelf spiked vodka, we're going to charge 15. We're just going to go down to that price per glass. So for our well one, it's going to cost about $1.29, right? Our lemonade we did in our last exercise, and our new shot, a shot and a half of well vodka. And then we're going to go to give us about a 13% cost of goods, which again is going to keep us in line. Like Ann said, we need some of those, because on our next slide, you guys are going to see the steak's going to cost us more money. And we're making $8.66 off that drink. When we go to the top shelf one, for example, our cost is going to be $2.46. So even on that price, our cost of goods is going to be a little higher. It's going to cost us 16.4, but our profit's $12.99. So we want to look at all the numbers together. There's no one number when we're talking about cost of goods or anything that's going to say, hey, this is better, this is worse. No, we want our numbers to all average out. But at the end of the day, would you still rather make $12.99 or $8.66? And that's where we kind of get to, but at least giving people an idea on where to start when it comes to putting something new on your menu or looking or reassessing the items you already have on your menu.
Yeah. And realizing that, you can control, improving your cost of goods by pushing people, even that little thing of reminding servers to upsell, right? How many times has that been, a key thing to do? But it's true, right? They're going to forget, but reminding them that little thing of, would you rather have the top shelf vodka or the well vodka has a real dollar difference for the same customer, same experience. They're still going to order the drink, but now you've made an extra, almost $4, which is, real dollars in your pocket.
Exactly. And that's what, when we get into all the numbers, that's kind of what it is. The real dollar is real dollar. And that's as we get into these examples, to kind of understand that it's not always better or worse. It's just knowing your business, what you're looking for, what you're trying to get out of it, so we can get you guys, the best possible menu analysis.
Exactly. All right, so now we're on to our hot dog.
Right. So at our fancy restaurant where we serve filet mignons and top shelf lemonade drinks, we have our hot dog. So again, let's just keep it simple. Let's assume a hot dog's about 50 cents, a bun, let's say 40 cents. So we're at 90 cents. And again, you could price hot dog whatever you want. This is where what are you going for? Are you trying to compete with your restaurant next door? Are you trying to use this as a happy hour? Whatever it is, you might have different goals. But for the sake of this, we're going to go $3 for a price of a hot dog. To see we're going to get to a 30% COG, which is kind of in line with maybe the very average food cost, right? Across the board, you're going to be around 30%. And again, our profit on here is going to be $2.10 for that hot dog.
Right. And I think the thing here to remember is, I think sometimes when we look at our menu, it would be easy to discount this as like, oh, well, maybe I should just not serve hot dogs. Or, I think, there could be reasons to have a lower cost item on your menu, especially in this environment, if people are a little more price conscious. And again, pairing something with maybe like an alcoholic drink or a happy hour or something like that, the last thing you want is your customer to think that they can't afford to be in your restaurant, because at the end of the day, you really want to be that experience place. So I think having lower priced items may be something to consider because again, part of this menu analysis or getting you to think about a menu analysis is it all adds up to that one average, but you could get there a lot of different ways. And even if we're selling hot dogs, we're only making $2. If we're making $8 on the lemonade, still not a bad day, right? So I think it doesn't have to be all or nothing, that having a good menu blend. What I'd love to hear, Scott comes from the Cheesecake Factory, which I think has a great example of having a menu that's, very diverse, but, blended in terms of price point.
Yeah, and that was their goal. Their goal was that anybody could find anything they want on the menu. Operational, that made it a little more difficult because you were serving a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, that was their goal, and they wanted items at different price points. You can come in and get a sandwich, or you could get a top line steak dinner. And I think for a restaurant owner or operator, you just want to know what are you looking to get out of it? Do you want your restaurant to be scratch kitchen and that's that's what you're doing? Are you organic? Are you healthy choice? Are you trying to compete on value? Once you have an idea of what you want to do, then you can decide what items you want to put on there, how you would like to price them, using your market competitors to see all that. And again, get a nice blend of all that. So at the end of the day, you're getting what you want out of your business.
Right. All right. So now we're on to our filet.
Yeah, so after the appetizer of a hot dog, right? We basically put in the filet, and again, all these are just for categories to give you an idea of what each thing could look like in different categories. So as we talk about a filet, we're gonna give a nice 12-ounce cut, nice large filet. And again, pricing on this could be different where you are. They're changing every week, but for our example, we're just gonna go. It's $24 a pound, so that 12-ounce cut is gonna be $18. We're going to throw the baked potato, the broccoli, and salad, and just say that's cost us $2. Again, so we're at $20 for our dish. Again, if you are a top end steakhouse, you might charge $85 for this dish. And if you are, depending where you are in the country, you might charge $35. For our example, we're going to say it's a $40 dish. And again, simple cost of goods, right? It's going to be 50%, right? It's going to be double what we paid. Which again, super high, right? It's a high food cost item. We know that's a high food cost item, but if you're a restaurant that wants to have steaks and have those high end items, that's probably where you're going to find yourself. But again, back to when we talked about, let's look at the profit though. So even though the cost of the goods were higher, we're making $20 compared to the hot dog. So the food cost is not going to be the end all answer on you're putting things on the menu. But like Ann was saying, we want there to be a nice blend that, hey, you're going to have some steaks, but you're going to have some pasta dishes or some pizzas or something else that is going to offset those ideas when it comes to food cost. But again, when we go to the bottom line, we go to the bottom line dollars, we're still selling a filet that we're making $20 off of, opposed to maybe something we're making $2 or $3 off of. So, and that's how we just want our operators to think, that it's not one number we're looking at. We're looking at all of them to get to that final.
Right. And I think the other thing to think about here is sometimes it can seem really overwhelming when we're looking at, doing some sort of analysis like this. But even if you were to spot check, right, if you don't have time to go through every menu item, even if you were to take, top 5 items that, customers buy on a Friday night and just check out those to see the difference in the price points, in the averages that you're running on the cost of goods. I think what you'll find there is a lot of what a lot of us have seen over the last 3 years, which is it's the bar that drives the change in the cost of goods, right? For the most part, the food costs are what they are. I mean, sometimes it's set by what people are willing to pay, whether you're, serving pizza and no one's willing to pay more than $15 for a large pie or whatever it is. There are usually more caps in terms of price points for the food side, but it's really the bar that can drive, some of the change and the margins that we may be missing. I think the other thing to point out here as we go through this is, the big thing here would obviously be inventory, right? So if we really feel like, okay, I've gone through this, I really haven't found an outlier. I don't understand why I'm in the 40s for cost of goods when I only sold 2 steaks last week. The other part of this could be inventory.
Yes, definitely. Because when we get to actual food costs, right, and we're deciding, all right, how can we impact our food costs? There's really only two ways, right? Either we need to increase the price of the menu item to our customers, or we need to reduce the cost of the menu item for our prep. So, when we talk about raising prices, I think that also, right, it's very scary, right? Oh, if I raise our prices, no one's going to eat here anymore. Probably not the case. And I think, if you look at the big restaurant companies, they do it twice a year. They analyze the restaurant menus twice a year. They do price increases. It doesn't have to be across the board. They're looking for about a 1.5 to 3% total menu increase, which is not a lot. So maybe it's just increasing burgers on this one. Maybe the next one's increasing dessert prices. So I think as you do that, it's not as scary as you think. But when you can add 1.5 to 3% to your bottom line by doing nothing but raising an item from maybe $10 to 10.45 and getting to see that impact, that's going to offset some of those labor costs, some of those higher food costs. And I think that's what, again, if you're just doing it every 6 months, you're never going to get too far behind on those prices.
Yeah, no, this is great stuff. All right. Um, so I think the first place to start would really be, like you said, to look at your pricing structure, to analyze, even if it's a spot check of some of your items, just to see, what really is your menu priced to produce. What I love is, we've had a couple clients that have gone through, doing the full, theoretical food costs. And I think as much as that's a pain to do and takes a lot of time, you really want to know, what is my menu priced to deliver, right? And maybe it makes sense to do it on the bar side as well as the food only. But either way, you need to know your target, because that's the starting point to really knowing what your team is responsible for. Because if my menu is priced to do 30 and I'm running a 32, I'm probably right in line with just, average waste and spoilage and things like that. But if my menu is priced to do 30 and I'm running a 36, then I know that there could be something operationally. On the flip side, if my menu is priced to do 36, then I know there's more of a, price issue or some menu mix issue going on. So I don't think there's any time that's wasted digging into your menu, especially now, because there's been so many changes in the last 12 months and, just overall cost of good increases and product things that could be delivered, could get them. And even though some of that is worked itself out now, a lot of times you've changed some of your products that you're using now compared to what you were using a year ago. And we just want to make sure that that pricing is in line. Scott, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, no, as we get into exactly, you're 100% correct. That's what we're basically controlling our cost in two ways, whether it's paying, we're either going to pay less for the raw product, which again, as an owner operator, you could shop those prices to different suppliers every, 6 months to a year. Use taking advantage on bulk discounts, especially when it comes to like non-perishables, like a liquor, where if they're running a deal on, Absolut Vodka and you sell a ton of Absolut Vodka, that's a great time to take advantage of a price like that and buy it in bulk. But most of the time as an operator, what I'm spending my time to focus on the bottom line is I'm trying to control waste. Like Ann was saying, I'm trying to find the yield. Once the price is the price, now it's how can we save less money? Are we wasting products? Like our examples earlier, if we're now selling a 12-ounce fillet, but we're giving customers 14-ounce fillets, it's going to add up really quickly. And that's why your cost isn't going to be what you thought it was. If we're pouring 2 ounces of vodka into our spiked lemonade instead of an ounce and a half, it doesn't take very long for those numbers to add up. So from the operational side, that's where I'm looking at is what are we doing? Are our teams adhering to the menus? And like Ann said, that's a great time to spot check, right? Weigh a couple steaks, watch a bartender pour. Are they using a correct jigger? And that's where the managers, if they know more, can, if they're doing a pour count, how many seconds were they counting for an ounce and a half shot? That's the kind of stuff that you can develop your teams on to do. Because that's really where you're going to impact food costs. Once you show that everything else is in line, that's how you're going to do it. You're going to fix it through all these other factors.
Right. So let's get into it. So we came up with several different ways that you can find your 5%. And again, I think the one thing I would add here, I think in search of 5%, I think the one thing that we've learned over the last, 3+ years is that you really need to look at this every week. So part of the reason we've moved to weekly accounting and weekly accountability is the fact that you're always looking at the same length of time. Monthly accounting, it gets very hard to find this, even if you're taking a monthly inventory and all of that, because inevitably you're going to have a different number of weekends, different number of Saturdays. There may have been a holiday. Like there's always different variables on the sales that you're looking at, which make it very hard to compare because someone could be pre-ordering and, all these things. Where on a weekly level, if I'm looking at a 4-week period and I see my cost of goods for those 4 weeks, yes, it could have been Mother's Day or there could have been something that happened in one of the weeks, but chances are I'm going to have at least 3 weeks of good data, which means I can really see what's the low, right? If I'm not taking an inventory and my team isn't trained to inventory, like our idea is to get you real information right now. So at a minimum, if you just looked at your food purchases over the last 4 weeks, right? Knowing right now that maybe last week was a holiday or there was some, variation in customer behavior last week, I still should have 3 good weeks of data where I could at least take the average and say, okay, I had a 30, I had a 23, I had a 36, and then I had a 27, right? So I'm just gonna take the average and that's my starting point, right? And just as a starting point, now I have a target to where I want to improve, right? Like if I can beat my average over the last 4 weeks, then I am improving, right? And if I can beat it consistently, then I'm getting my next 4 weeks average even better. So I think some of this is to say, this isn't big, overwhelming things, right? Yes, we'd love to, be on site at your restaurant together for the next, 5 weeks and really dig in, but we don't need to, right? We can find 5% by just knowing exactly where we are with no excuses. Say, I'm just going to use purchases. I don't even care. Okay, they counted wrong and whatever. I'm just going to use purchases. I'm going to take my purchases over the last 4 weeks and I'm going to use that as my target for the next 4 weeks. And knowing I know I can improve because I wasn't paying attention over those 4 weeks, but I am paying attention now. So with that as a starting point, here's some of the things that we could do together. So Scott, talk a little bit about what you would do if your goal was, okay, I think waste might be an issue and I'm looking at this average. What could I do to maybe control my waste without, spending a day?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's going to start, as we talked about earlier, kind of budgeting. What do you think you're going to do in sales, right? So using those projections, and that's what we really enjoy helping our clients do is figuring out what does their next week or next month look like, because we want to order properly, right? We want to make sure we don't want to order 10 cases of lettuce that are going to go bad. That's a quick way to waste it, right? There's nothing you did wrong. Whoever ordered did wrong, but there's nothing that the staff member could do differently. That 5 cases are going to just go bad because we over ordered. So as we start at the back door, we're kind of working that way. Are our ordering pars correctly? Are, that stuff starting how we want it? And then from there, just make sure that every invoice is correct, right? We want to make sure that if we're ordering 5 cases of steaks, 5 cases come in, right? So we want to start the back door, just validating, like Ann said, you don't need to spend a whole day back there, but just validating that what we wanted to come in is coming in. And that's checking off every item from maybe a large Cisco invoice to someone went to the grocery store, right? We want to make sure that what we thought we're buying is what we're actually buying. We don't want someone's home groceries counting toward our restaurant groceries because there's an extra couple of things on that giant receipt that we never caught because it's just out in kind of limbo. So always starting there. Once we know that what we want is correct, what came in the door is correct, then we can start managing the recipe adherence, starting in the prep. Are we prepping the right amounts, right? If it's a 12-ounce fillet, are we weighing out? Is it a 12-ounce fillet? Is it this many ounces of mashed potatoes, right? Whatever we're working toward, that's the way that we're getting the correct yields out of it. Because if not, there's no way for you to get your food costs because you're just giving more out than you plan to, than you wanted to.
No, and I think on that, I would also say what I think is important is when you're getting into the whole discussion of should you take an inventory, should you not take an inventory. I know there's, it's a cost obviously in the people's time. It's stressful to the team. However, it is very valuable information. For me on the accounting side, the most eye-opening to me is even if you're not going to take an inventory every week, is just to look at the dollars that you currently have in inventory, right? Is it 5,000 in inventory? Is it 25,000 in inventory? Because that can really help you understand the flow of your cash. Because if I have a $25,000 average inventory, then that means it's turning over every 2 to 3 weeks, probably between dry goods and then the perishables. So that's a lot of cash that's in and out, and that is more exposed to things like waste or theft from employees or whatever it is. So I think just having that understanding of like how much of your cash is tied up in your inventory can help this seem, instead of being something that you have to do, something that you want to do. Because if you can cut your inventory from 25,000 to 20, you've just found $5,000 in cash, right? Just by ordering less over the next 4 weeks, and yet nothing changes to your customers. So I think if nothing else, looking at the inventory as those are your dollars that are sitting on your shelf. So this is really important as a way to, just protect those dollars.
Right. And then as you brought up, like the theft thing, exactly. We never want to think that someone's going to be taking from us, right? But if there's 30 bottles of vodka in the back compared to 2 bottles in the vodka in the back, it's much easier for an owner, operator, or a manager to, whether they're inventory or not, walk back there and say, all right, I had 30 bottles, now it's 29. I'm not going to notice a difference. If there was only 3 bottles or 2 bottles and now there's only one, well, where did it go? So I think as you have less products, it also makes the staff and the team say, oh, I don't want to waste this because if I use it, we're not going to have any more to prep the next item. So I think as you monitor those inventories, it just becomes a mindset for the staff, the managers, whoever's involved, that we have to be more respectful of the product. We have to be more careful because if I drop 3 tomatoes and there's only 4, I don't have any more to make anything with. If there's 6 cases, it doesn't really matter, right? So I think it just becomes a mindset of the restaurant that it's not wasteful, and that's going to be right to the bottom line as we talk about kind of in that back of the house. Are the coolers locked? Are the liquor rooms locked? Who gets into there? All those internal controls of how you want your business or restaurant set up, to kind of thinking through the flow of the shift, what it should look like.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to pay attention here too is, which ties into your cost, because you really feel like, something's not adding up. The other place to look would be, the discounts and voids on the point of sale system, because the good thing with the point of sale systems now is they're, a lot more high tech than they were, 5 or 10 years ago. And so, if it really feels like, wow, how did I burn through 10 fillets when I only showed that I, sold 2, we may want to look at, some of the discounts, employee meals, voids, who has access to do that, because, even little things like that can add up to, 2 to 3%. I recently read an article that said on average, there's probably 4% in just shrinkage in a company. So if you think about, your sales on a weekly or monthly basis, there probably is some of that that's inevitable, right? But the more that we're aware, the more we're paying attention, and the more we're doing that weekly, and our, employees know that we're looking, I think some of that can just be mitigated without ever having to really say anything.
Yeah, definitely best practices. Even when we talk about non-alcoholic beverages or bar gases, printed checks, right? A server or bartender should, before they give a customer an item, they should already ring it in. So a manager could walk at any time and say, oh, there's 3 sodas on that table. Let me check. Oh, there's a drink in front of that customer. Let me check. And so just kind of those systems in place to, as an owner, you could do it at any time and know that you can find those those easier accessible items that maybe only one person has to get, not ring in and cook.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about the relationship with suppliers. Like how, if I was really interested in like looking at, what I'm paying for things, how would I go about, exploring that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's where you want to use your sales reps or, whoever you deal with. Again, if you're a small company, you're maybe just you're going to get your own items. Yeah, it's easy, right? You could shop the local grocery store, you could shop Costco, wherever you're getting stuff to see what the best prices are. But just because you use a Cisco or a US Foods doesn't mean you can't do that also. You should be talking to your rep about, hey, what's my price per pound of chicken? What's my price per that? And every once in a while, just to keep your sales rep honest, you probably want to go get a quote from somebody else. I mean, even fountain sodas, people don't think that, you can go to Coke, you can go to Pepsi, right? There's different things and they want your business. So if maybe you've been, I grew up a family business for years. I remember there was Coke products and eventually it switched over to Pepsi because Pepsi came in and they said, we're going to give you this great deal and all this percentages off of it. And it just translated to more to the bottom line for really doing nothing than to switching to making a switch. So I think that just being kind of proactive on that, don't settle for, hey, there's going to be price increases. Chicken's going up, milk, whatever, eggs, things are going up, but you can still kind of go around and see with your suppliers and check and see, what the competitor's prices and see if they can bring that to your bottom line.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add here on the accounting side is those rebates, right?
Right.
Because so many times it's like, oh, well, I love the rebate, I get it twice a year, but then we're not really factoring that in to the costs that we're seeing, throughout the month or throughout the week. So I think being aware of how those rebates are generated, like how much do you really get for your ordering? Not that we have to get into the weeds and, have an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, but just being aware of the dollars that are going to come back to you and probably checking those to make sure that it actually does come back to you in the way that they said. But those can sometimes be things that we're not really factoring in. So at times looking at a percentage that may be slightly higher because we're going to get this rebate, every 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes you talk to your suppliers and you can eliminate the rebates and they'll give you a better price right off the bat. There are times where if you kind of ask them, hey, you know what? I don't want the special pair of sunglasses you send me in summer, right? I want your best price on this right now. And there are some, sometimes that will, like Ann said, you get, week to week then instead of twice a year on a rebate or a kickback basically.
Right. And also being aware of the suppliers that offer those. I think from the internal control standpoint, being aware that it isn't, a GM or someone else who's
Right.
aware of these rebates or kickbacks, but that you, the owner, are always aware of it because we have seen that as well. So, a little bit of control, internal control, as well as just paying attention, I think can really help us, towards the goal of the bottom line. So one thing to remember, so our goal in these sessions is to really walk through several different areas. So this was really focused on food costs. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out. We are offering a free 30-minute session where we actually will walk through your budget with you based on your numbers and can dig in a little deeper on some of these discussion points. Budget calls with Scott, so you'll get to know Scott as well, which is awesome. But please take us up on it because, our goal is not just to do accounting and tax work, but it really is to provide you useful information and make your business better, whether you use us or not. So please take us up on it. It's on our website. You can click on the link and schedule a session time with Scott and can build out a budget for 2023. And then our next month's webinar will be focused on labor. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, if there's different things that maybe we touched on today, but you want us to go through next month in more detail, we're happy to do it. We want to make this very much what you're looking for out there. We know it's a crazy time, but there's no reason that 2023 can't be a great year. And so hopefully these will help us all move forward and have a great year. All right. Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you on our next session.
Take care. Thanks for having me.